Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of the Rebel Witch Show. I am so excited to be back. It's a solo episode this week, and we are going to talk about intuition. I have a crazy story that I don't remember if I've told this story or not. I feel like I haven't from when I first became psychic. And then we're going to do almost like an introductory masterclass so you can really understand your intuition and hopefully just ground into the fact that it's not this like mystical thing that is abstract. Like, it's very tangible, it's very real, it's highly studied. You know me, I want to know the science behind literally everything, behind magic, real magic. So we're gonna get into this hot topic today. I have my notes off to the side here that I'm going to be looking at. So I mean, I could talk forever and ever about how intuition development has changed my life. Like, I am on this mission to pass this along because intuition, it's our superpower. And it's not something that only a few blessed individuals have this ability. Yes, some people are naturally more intuitive, just like some people are naturally better at basketball or naturally more um, artistic when it comes to like drawing or painting or whatever. But we can develop these skills. And even somebody who's naturally gifted at something, in order to be great at it, they work really hard, right? And so it's how should we start this? Should we start with the spicy story or should we start with the education? I feel like we'll start with the spicy story so that I can get you excited about the education part, which is not boring to me, but maybe it's not quite as exciting. I was laughing because one of my clients, we always have shout out to Pam. We have silly goofy times every week when we meet. And we were laughing because she's like, yeah, you said something in your abundance alchemy program about like, oh, you know what everyone says, cells that fire together wire together. And she was like, everyone doesn't say that. That's not like a common phrase. And I was laughing. I was like, I guess that's just among us that like to study the science and shit. I just like to understand. I like to understand. So, but let's start with the story, okay? And I'm really excited to get to the like teaching part, the education part, because I'm always restudying and going deeper into these concepts myself. And I've always taught intuition for like between like intuition versus ego. I've never explained it this way that I'm going to today. About the three parts of the mind and how they all work together. So I haven't taught this yet. I haven't taught it from this angle yet. So very exciting. But let's start with the motherfucking tea. Okay, are you ready? So I have to give you a little bit of a background, and some of you might know this before, especially if you listened to Goddess Hangs, which is my old podcast, which there's well over 100 episodes. If you're new around here, search up Goddess Hangs. Lots of good stuff there. But let's all travel back to the year 2019. Okay, I'm working at a crystal store, which being surrounded by these crystals all the time, I could talk about whatever. We'll just talk about it now. Me and my million tangents. But I never really like gave crystals a thought at all before I worked at the crystal store, like if they were real or not or whatever. But working there, I have to tell you, like, when I first started working there, I had like, and the owner warned us, like a bunch of us started at once. She was like, you're gonna feel these crystals, like it's really intense. Every time I left the store, like I would be so exhausted, and the entire time I worked there, I was so thirsty all of the time. Like the energy of the crystals was so crazy that like it just like it took a toll on your body until you adjusted to it, and then after a while, like I adjusted to it. But then if I like took a week off work and came back, it would like the same thing would happen. Like being surrounded by literally like hundreds of crystals was crazy, but that's not the point of the story. But this is a big catalyst for my spiritual awakening. Like I've always like kind of had like one foot in, one foot out with spirituality at this point. Like I've always been drawn to it. Like as a kid, like I read the Bible and I was always asking questions of religion. I've always been this way. Like I always just want to understand. I'm like, okay, like I can get my energy behind this, but you have to explain it to me. I was always trying to like categorize and understand like religion and spirituality. But working this crystal shop, it's a total, portal. And my boss, is this like very like, exactly what you would expect. Like a goddessy, always wearing like flowy dresses and just, and she says she's clairaudient. And sometimes she like gives me these like psychic messages that I'm just kind of like, okay, and we have like these like psychic customers come in and they're like, oh, like saying stuff, never to me, always to other people, which I was like, is there like something on me that's freaking you out? But I'm like, this is the first time I'm around like psychic stuff. I grew up with a funny, weird hippie mom that was doing qigong, that was doing, meditation, that was, into spirituality. And like in hindsight, like she was absolutely super psychic because she always knew when I was like getting up to something, even though she could never prove it. So we're always just dancing around each other with that. But like, but like in qigong, like you learn, similar to Reiki, it's an energy healing. Like you learn how to like feel and see blockages. So that is being psychic, but just the word psychic was never in my life. And like the same that I said about crystals, like I never really questioned like, do I believe in it? Do I not believe in it? It just wasn't really something in my life. So this is the first time I'm like surrounded by, like, and I moved to LA and this is my first job. So like, I don't know, like classic, and I'm just like, okay, like this is interesting. I don't know. None of these like psychics they're like saying stuff to other workers, but never to be like, look at me and they move on. I don't know if my mom was like kind of like protecting me or something, my mom in spirit, because they were kind of like weirdos. And like I said, my boss would say stuff sometimes, but like, it never was like, it never like hit hard enough where I was like, oh my God, she's so psychic, And so anyways, this is just like my first 2019. This is the first time I'm around like psychic people or people that are claiming to be psychic. And I'm just kind of like, this is weird, but it's interesting. Like I'm into it. And then 2020, okay, we all know that was crazy. And I think for a lot of us, this was a huge catalyst for our spiritual journey because like a lot of us just had more time. Like I was a non-essential worker, so my job was just like gone for the time being. And so I had all this time. I had all this time on my hands. And this is ultimately what gave me like the time to go through all of these programs and trainings and then start my business. So I'm really grateful. Like I made so much of that time, but I think like everyone just like being home, not being able to go out and be social, like we were forced into this period where we're just with ourselves, like especially anyone like living by yourself, right? And so this was like, obviously it was hard for me like it was for everyone else. There's a lot of tragedy surrounding this time, but it was also a big blessing in terms of like I was gifted this time. And it kind of makes my head spin sometimes because I was just thinking about how like I bought a moldavite crystal from the store I worked at like in the very beginning of 2020, right? And like everything shut down in March, I believe. Yeah. And moldavite, if you haven't heard of moldavite before, it's this crystal. I actually have my moldavite. This is what I bought. Oops. So if you're watching the video, you can see it's this like green. It's not like, this isn't like the prettiest piece ever, but just kidding. I love you. You're beautiful. But it's this green, oops, let me show it like this crystal. And it's supposed to just be like a mega transformer. Like it just like, it's like the Tower tarot card. Like it is going to just like rip out everything in your life that is not meant for you. And it's going to just like move along your timeline really fast. It's intense. So I bought that and then like the pandemic happened and I like was like, did this make me like change timelines? Like, is there like a version of me that lives in a different timeline that like the pandemic didn't happen, but I bought this crystal and like quantum shifted into this crazy one because like, I don't know, when I think back to the pandemic, like that was crazy. The entire world was shut down. Anyways, if I think about it too hard, my head starts to spin and I feel like I went into a different timeline because like I bought this crystal and then this happened and then I had all this time and like I was getting unemployment because I couldn't go to work. So like I was still like taken care of. And so I'm like, I manifested the money to not work and start building this business like crazy, right? And so anyways, I'm spending all my free time. I'm like investing in manifestation programs, money mindset courses, business programs. It's amazing. Um, but I feel like when it comes to manifestation, there's a missing piece. Like I'm manifesting like crazy. But and like now I know like that was my intuition, and the missing piece that wasn't being like taught inside of these programs was intuition. And I feel like now I think every manifestation teacher brings up intuition now, but back then it wasn't really like the forward part of it. But to me, like intuition is like that's the gap between the energy work and bringing it into physical reality. It's the bridge. And so like you hear about like, how to manifest, and it's like, okay, like set your intention, get in alignment, meaning like, like you hear a lot like act as though it's already done, or do your, like clearing limiting beliefs, things like that. And then you skip forward to and take inspired action. Well, inspired action means action led by your intuition, but that wasn't explained to me in a clear way. And while I was doing that, I felt like there's something not being like taught. There's this missing piece, right? And I didn't understand at the time, but intuition was like, hey, hi, it's me, your girl. So this is like this was also divinely timed. So this is like around my birthday, 2020, okay, August. And I was like, okay, so I'm learning all about manifestation, money mindset, business, life coaching, all of these things, right? And I'm like, okay, I am getting a reading. And I've never ever had a reading at this point in my life. Not an astrology reading, not a tarot reading, not a psychic reading, nothing. It just wasn't, I don't know, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, like that just wasn't a thing. Like I was always like interested in astrology, but never really took it seriously. I would look up my horoscopes and stuff, like I would like do these sort of like kind of readings for myself. And at this point I'd been learning tarot, but I hadn't really like taken it seriously yet. And, but I still haven't received a reading ever. Okay. So it's my birthday and I'm like, okay, like this is I was, you just got to get yourself a couple birthday gifts. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a reading and I want an Akashic record reading. I decided. I still don't really understand what Akashic records is. I'll be honest, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how it works, but I met with this lady it was a phone call. It was like a Skype call, no video. And that reading was incredible, by the way. I ended up sending her link to everyone I knew. I think her name was Kate. I could find it if anyone wants to know. I don't know if she still does them, but that's a story for another time. Like, remind me if you want to hear the Akashic record story. Let me know. But that reading was on purpose, okay? And then this was so divinely timed. So I'm just mind blown by this reading. And then the same week of me booking this reading, I actually have my first two readings like practically back to back in 1 week. And I cannot tell you how crazy and intense and mind-blowing this was to experience, right? Like you just have to remember like, and maybe you've all like, I'm sure a lot of you have stories like this because it is like that beginning part of your spiritual journey. You're just like, what is happening? But in the same week I have the Akashic record reading, I also get connected to medium Megan Hart, which again, if you're like a Goddess Things listener, if you've been around for a while, you've heard her name before. She was my first psychic mentor. She's incredible. I love Megan so much. Her Instagram handle used to be medium Megan Hart, but now I believe it's at Lot of Spirit, LOT of Spirit. She doesn't post a lot anymore. I think she mostly does in-person work, but you could probably reach out to her and get a reading. She's incredible. But she actually reached out to me because I had recently posted, I was like, hey, I'm giving away 5 free coaching sessions because I was just starting my coaching business. And she reached out to me and it was like, I don't know, a couple weeks later. And she said, hey, like, I'm really interested in one of your coaching sessions. And I was like, oh, like I filled them all a while ago, but like I'm really interested in what you do. Maybe we could hop on a call and kind of like, I don't know, just kind of like almost like an exchange. Like I could, listen to what you're working on and offer you some advice, and you could tell me more about what you do, right? And she's like, oh my God, absolutely, of course. And so we just kind of hop on this casual call. We're not even like doing the coaching at that point. We're just going to kind of like connect. And then she just gives me an impromptu medium reading connecting to my dead mom. And so my mom passed away in 2015. This is 2020. So it's 5 years. The anniversary of my mom's death is August. She passed away 2 days, I was going to say 2 years, 2 days before my birthday. So this is all very just divinely put together, right? Like a medium is reaching out to me for coaching, and then she ends up giving me a reading. And it's like the anniversary around the time of my mom's passing. It's just like so mind blowing. And this is like, oh my God. Because the Akashic record reading was incredible, but I gave her my birth time, my whatever. It has, I think, some things to do with this. But this woman, I'm hopping on a phone and she's telling me details around when my mom passed. She's bringing up like ex-boyfriend name of like when my mom was the boyfriend I had when my mom was passing, and like just things she never could have known. Even if she would have done some sort of like deep dive research, she wouldn't have found any of that information. So this is my brain is exploding, imploding. I cannot wrap my brain around this. And it was so healing. Like for any of my mediums out there or people feeling the call to be a medium, like, oh my gosh, this is such an important profession. Like it was so, so healing to get those messages from my mom that were so obviously from her, So absolutely incredible. But then she, like, I don't know, like a couple of weeks later starts, I'm following her. And she posts that she's doing this psychic development program. And I remember being on the beach. I remember I have this memory so clearly. We're getting to the spicy stuff soon, don't worry. But I have this memory so clearly of laying on the beach, which we didn't live there at the time, but we ended up moving to literally this beach later. And I'm sitting, me and my ex were sitting on our beach towels, and I'm on my phone looking at like her program details. And I looked at him and I was like, am I crazy for wanting to do this program, like to be psychic? Like it's a psychic development program. It's like, come do this program, you will be psychic afterwards. And I don't have any sort of past experiences that have ever hinted at me being like, oh, you might be psychic. No, I just had this calling. And I was like, that's crazy, right? Like to buy this psychic development program, that's crazy, right? And he just so casually like didn't miss a beat, and he was like, of course you're psychic, babe, like do it. And bless him, because he was so instrumental in just like when I didn't have the belief in me, he had it. Like he was like, of course you should do that, of course you'll be good at that, whatever, when I wasn't there yet. So just shout out. But I end up it's funny. This is important that he was like, yeah, you should definitely do it. You're definitely psychic. Okay, this is funny. Like it's not funny, but it's funny now because I'm fully healed and it's totally fine. It is funny. Okay, so this is the spicy hot tea. All that backstory just to get to this point and say, I start doing this psychic development program. This was awful at the time, okay? I started doing this psychic development program, and I'm having really incredible experiences right away. Like I open up so fast. I'm having these profound experiences connecting with my mom. We're doing practice readings and I'm like hitting it. I'm doing so good. But something else is also happening. I start doing this program and I'm seeing in my meditation visions when I'm like, what do I need to know? And then I meditate. Seeing in my dreams, I'm seeing my ex with other women. I'm seeing these women very clearly. Like I can describe them. It's not like a shadowy figure. I'm seeing like vivid visions. And when I mean together, I mean like together, okay? And I never had any suspicion of anything going on. Like, I don't know, I am just such a trusting person to the point that it's like, I maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I'm quite gullible. I don't know. I'm just like, why? Like, why would anyone have any reason to lie to me? I don't know. Um, so I'm just like, so these meditations, these visions, whatever, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, it hasn't even connected to me that these are psychic things either. Like, I'm like, I think I did know they were psychic, but I was just in complete denial. And then, like, once I like got to the bottom of it, I knew it was true. Then looking back, I could see that there were a couple times where I was like, girl, you were in denial. Like, there were signs, but I didn't even like allow it to be like a thought. But these visions are coming up, and I also haven't had cheating happen to me in past relationships. So this is so confusing to me because it's not even like trauma reliving itself, right? It's just like, this is completely new. But I was in such denial. And then, long story short, it was true. Like every week, the entirety of the first 2 years of our relationship, kind of true. Crazy. Um, and even crazier, we stayed together after that, but that's a different story. We had just signed a lease, and I was like, I feel like this is a sign that I found this out after. Anyways, I am grateful, and it was the right decision to stay at that point because it taught me a lot about forgiveness, and I really did genuinely fully forgive it. Um, but that was crazy. And also, disclaimer, do not ask me if your partner is cheating on you. I don't know. I do not want to be the person for that. But that was the crazy start to my psychic journey. And it's interesting. I mean, obviously at the time it was so painful. I didn't tell anybody. I was so embarrassed because I knew the decision at that point was to stay. And I kept it all to myself. It was very painful. It was a huge, like, oh my God, like talk about melting down and then being a butterfly, whatever. But that was the start. And it was really, I mean, I always try to find the lesson, one, learning like deep forgiveness, forgiving something like that. It didn't happen very fast. I mean, it took a lot of work, and especially on my own. But I think the other gift of that situation was that, like, I was like, oh, bro, no doubt I am fucking psychic. I'm like, no question. I mean, it didn't all come to its conclusion for, actually, you know what? It wasn't actually that long after that. It was a few months, but wowza, what a time that was. But shall we get into how you can be psychic? Should we get into that now? I think we should. If you have a crazy psychic story like that, please let me know. Maybe I could like anonymously read some great psychic stories. But it just goes to show, like, I know so many women, like, they have, I mean, I'm sure it happens to men too, but I don't know. Like, I talk to women, my algorithm is full of lots of women creators, I'm sure it happens to other people too, but women are just classically like, we're our intuition, everyone has intuition, but we're just sort of classically like considered to be more intuitive, and like they'll have a dream and then like check their phone and check their partner's. I just saw a TikTok that was like, I woke up from a dream of my partner with a specific girl from work, checked his location, he was at her house or something like that, like, we know. And so maybe this is just an invitation for you to just like believe it. Because if you're anything like me, I was in denial. Hard. But anyways, let's get into how you can be psychic. Let's get into the educational piece. But yeah, that was a little bit of a traumatizing entry into being a psychic, but powerful, because I was like, holy shit, I saw that. I got the confirmation that the woman that I was seeing my visions was in fact one of the women. Like, I mean, it was crazy. Sip of my drink. Okay, by the way, side note, I've been drinking, now I'm out of breath from drinking, oh my God. I've been drinking apple cider vinegar for my health, for my gut, and I love the taste of vinegar when it's watered down, obviously, not straight vinegar. But I drink it every morning on an empty stomach, apple cider vinegar and lemon juice, and water. But in the afternoons, it's really good for your gut health. In the afternoons, so I love kombucha. I love like a good vinegary kombucha. But kombucha, it's pricey. Even in Bali, it's kind of pricey. I feel like I hacked homemade kombucha because apple cider vinegar has the like probiotic shit in it. So I put apple cider vinegar and then lemon juice and then bubbly water. And I guess if you wanted to, you could add a little sugar, but I don't. But it tastes like kombucha. It's so good. Okay, so let's get into how you can be psychic and catch you or your besties or the neighbor's partner being a dirty little rotten cheater. Just kidding. It's really useful for other things. I actually have like so many now, like crazy intuition stories that I have told quite a few of them, either in TikToks, Reels, or like on the Goddess Hanks podcast back in the day. But yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. I just had a client call this morning where she was like, I feel like all of this like healing, clearing process we're doing, like the intention behind it isn't like specifically to open up intuition, but she was saying like, I just like, my intuition comes through so clearly and it's just like, I don't even question it. I just like, it's like, yeah, it's there. I act on it, which is like the coolest thing ever. Which book a soul session for that. Book a soul session. It's a one-on-one, 1 hour. And then honestly, most people that book that single session, most people then buy a coaching package because the work we do is crazy good. But let's get into it. So in the simplest terms to explain this, to start out with and give you something tangible to put into practice right now, is 2 things I want to mention before we get into like the meat of it. So one is that mind-heart coherence is key. Your heart is as an energy center, not like the beating organ, but like your heart chakra. The Anahata chakra. So mind-heart coherence basically just means in agreement, in alignment. Your mind and your heart agree, right? Like, when your heart is telling you something, but like, for example, my heart was saying something's off, something's wrong, but my mind was like, no, we're not going to even go down that road, right? They're in disagreement. We're not in alignment. That mind-heart coherence, that agreement is really important for your intuition. And this is the big one that I bring up all the time, especially if you struggle with anxiety. I've struggled with anxiety my entire life. I still do. But intuition only exists in the present moment, and anxiety exists in the future. Anxiety happens, it can come from the past too, but most often, like anger or pain will come from the past because we're like agonizing over something that happened in the past. Anxiety is usually more of like a worry, and we're worrying about the future. We don't really worry about the past. We hurt from the past, but we worry about the future, right? And so intuition only exists in the present. And so if you feel like you're questioning intuition, is this my intuition or is this my anxiety? Do what you can to come into the present moment. Any mindfulness practice, literally like a walk outside and just practicing the art of noticing, just like looking at the details, leaves on the trees, marks on the sidewalk, whatever. It doesn't even have to be in nature. It can be in the city. But coming into the present moment in the way that works best for you. So meditation, creative time, literally like brushing your teeth with the wrong hand. It's good for your brain, and it also can bring you into the present moment because you have to concentrate harder. So intuition only exists in the present moment. So today I want to get into explaining the 3 parts of the mind, because this is huge to elevate your intuition, especially if you want to expand into like the psychic level. Like, there's no difference between intuition and psychic. Actually, it's really just like how we tend to categorize being like highly intuitive, right? Like being super tapped in. And so our mind has 3 parts. There's the superconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious. I haven't actually talked about the superconscious this way before, but the subconscious and the conscious are kind of the things that I've talked about before. If you've been in any of my classes, we talk a lot about the subconscious because the subconscious is where a lot of the healing happens, where a lot of the clearing and opening up happens. But let's start with the superconscious. So the superconscious represents your higher self. The superconscious is your connection to the divine. So this is almost like, this would be like, if you want to imagine it in a physical way, if you're a visual person, this is like your crown chakra that's existing above the, if the mind is your brain, which it's not, but that's a good way to visualize it. Or, there's a lot of philosophical debate of trying to define the mind and the brain and the mind and how does it all work? Electricity. But the superconscious would, if we were going to visualize it and from an energetic sense, it's almost like it exists above the mind, above our bodies. And so this is our connection with the divine. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of my favorite teachers of, the supernatural, connected to science and the divine, running lots of, experiments and things, he would call this our connection to the quantum field. The quantum field meaning like infinite possibility, right? Abraham Hicks, one of my other favorites to listen to for like a pep talk, right? To get in that manifesting energy. Abraham Hicks would say this is connecting to source energy. This is all the superconscious. This is God. This is the universe. In yoga, it's referred to as universal consciousness. This is the mystical part of us. This is the spiritual part of us. This is connected with us and everything. Plants, animals. Ideally, this is the part of the mind that's leading us, right? We want to be connected to this universal consciousness. Now, the subconscious, we can think of that as under the conscious, right? So this is the emotional part of our mind that corresponds directly with our physical presence. This subconscious takes in information from our physical senses and is filing it away. This is where our sense of survival comes from. This is where this is ego, subconscious. And this is the part of the brain that's meant to keep us safe. And so the subconscious has perfect memory, and it acts like a warehouse. If you wanted to visualize the subconscious, this would be like what I picture is the Hall of Prophecies in Harry Potter. The Hall of Prophecies with all of the like crystal balls on the shelves as far as you can see in every direction. This is our subconscious. Perfect, absolutely perfect memory, okay? It takes in everything and it stores it and it uses this information. Our subconscious is almost like, it's like our own personal AI. Artificial intelligence, we have to feed it the information and then it comes to conclusions. Sometimes AI is wrong because based on the information it's been fed, it comes to the wrong conclusion. It doesn't have like a consciousness to decipher that information, right? So sometimes AI is wrong despite its perfect memory, remembering everything you feed it. So the subconscious is almost like our AI in a way. It remembers everything, absolutely everything with no filter. So it's not like, ooh, this would be a helpful thing for us to remember, store it away. Ooh, we don't need that. It's going to have a detrimental effect on our life. No, thank you. No, it takes in everything with no judgment, no filter. So our beliefs, our values, our habits, our thoughts and action come from all of these experiences and memories that create a frame of reference for ourselves. Okay, so if you think of it like this is our programming, right? Like I talk a lot about subconscious reprogramming. That's a big part of my work. It's something I work on every single day personally. And our programming is just taking in all of the information from every memory of the physical, experience that we've gone through from age 0 to now, or even in the womb, honestly. And this is our frame of reference, right? So this is our programming. It's the programming that's running our lives. So if you grew up in a home where, money is a big example, where your parents were always fighting about money, or your caregivers were always fighting about money. Money was always stressful. You were, taught funky beliefs about money. Then that's your personal like law in your life, right? Like that keeps repeating itself until you reprogram that. So we can never get rid of a program, right? Subconscious has perfect memory. We can't get rid of, we can't delete. It's always going to be filed away, but we can reprogram. So we can install a new program. And so when we're experiencing fear and resistance, this is because we are rebelling against our programming. It's our brain is threatened. It has all of these memories that have created a frame of reference for what's normal, what's acceptable, what's safe. And if we go against that, it literally thinks we're going to die because it's an all or nothing survival based instinct. And so this is, my note says, this is why I work so much with subconscious reprogramming. Our survival instinct is going to fight and fight and fight and fight this. So what we want to do is rise into the superconscious, right? Think of those moments, a time where you were scared, but you knew you had to do this thing. And you rebelled against that fear and resistance, and you stood up and you did it. You left a relationship, or you quit your job, or whatever. And your mind was screaming, no, 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 no. What if there's nothing else out there for us? What if we fail? But you were elevated into the superconscious, and you knew, you had this inner knowing, this is right, despite the fear being activated in my body right now. Subconscious says you're limited because look, I have this proof from your life so far. This is the proof of all of your limitations. And superconscious says, no way, you're infinite. See, I'm connected to all possibility. I'm connected to universal consciousness. We are one. What's possible for them is possible for you too. So the subconscious programming, I always feel like I have to add this like sub note. It's not all bad, of course. It holds the information to like not touch the hot stove, right? Like what if we had to relearn every single day to not touch the hot stove? Like all of our fingers would be burnt all the time and we couldn't use our iPhones. How to drive our car. Wouldn't it be exhausting if you drive, go back to how it felt to drive at 15 when you're like learning, 16 years old, and you're like in high alert, okay? You've got both hands knuckling the steering wheel. You're checking all your mirrors every 3 seconds. You're fiddling with are my lights on? You're trying to not brake too hard or too slow. You're wondering, you're like, oh my God, is it going to turn yellow? Oh no, did I run the light? Right? Like you're in high alert. It's stressful when you're first learning. At least for me, it was. I've been a worrier my whole life. If anyone was chill, I'm impressed. But then this programming through repetition, we learned, oh, okay, I'm this far away. I know when to start pressing the gas or start pressing the brake. I automatically check my mirrors every once in a while, but I don't think about it. I don't have to make a choice to do it. I don't have to remind myself. I don't have to be on high alert. It just, my eyes glance up every so often without me thinking about it. It's automated. That's your subconscious programming. So the subconscious programming is awesome. It helps us. It makes life so much easier. What the problem is that when we have programming that doesn't serve us, like certain beliefs about money and things like that. So the subconscious is amazing. It's a superpower we have when we're aware of its power, and we can, through repetition, through intentional, methods, we can reprogram it, and then it becomes automated to be tapped into abundance. It becomes automated to see the world through eyes where making more money is easy, where where relationships feel safe, and we practice really easy discernment when someone's not for us, whatever it is, right? And so the subconscious is a very important job. but it gets a bad rap sometimes because it's like, oh, it's holding all of these things that are the source of my anxiety or the source of me, you know, I'm not pursuing things, but it's like, we can change that. We can work on that. No big deal. So then let's touch on the conscious. So this is the crazy thing about the conscious mind. We do not have a conscious mind until the age of about 7. From 0 to 7, we are just walking around as a subconscious mind. And that means that we're basically walking around in a hypnotic state. Like, we're just completely absorbing everything. And it becomes like a part of our frame of reference for our entire lives. So from ages 0 to 7, like, this is like peak, like when we're getting programmed. Okay. And don't let that stress you out if you have kids. By the way, when I learned this, I was like, oh my God, I can never have children. I'm going to fuck them up. Part of our jobs, I think, as adults is to do the best we can, but also like our kids, as if I have a kid. I don't have a kid, but kids are on their own journey. They're on their own soul journey. And so it's like, you're not going to get everything right. You're going to do the best you can with the information you have, just like your parents did. And great. You can try to teach them good things about money. You can try to teach them good things about relationships, all that great stuff. But don't stress about this. When I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, ages 0 to 7, when I have a kid, I'm just going to be constantly on alert. Like, what am I programming them? But our conscious develops from after 7 years old until our late 20s. Well, that's a long time. So this is the conscious. So the conscious is like the liaison connecting the subconscious and the superconscious, right? The conscious mind is a collaborator. So it doesn't really act on its own. It's in harmony with the subconscious or with the superconscious. It's like, what are we doing here? Great. The power of the conscious mind is the power of focus and discernment. So our conscious mind makes decisions. And so we get to decide. This is where commitment comes in. This is where devotion comes in. This is a decision to, you know, I don't like this part of my life. I'm going to hire a coach for it, right? A decision to be uncomfortable doing new things. I know it, I get scared. I know I feel resistance, but I'm deciding to do this anyways. So our conscious is the decider. We have superconscious and subconscious whispering to our conscious mind saying, like, listen, I always think of it, even though it's not good and bad, right? We just discussed the subconscious is not bad, but I always kind of think of it like the cartoon, like angel and devil on my shoulder, because so often, you know, the times we know when our subconscious is fucking with us is when we're like on the brink of making some sort of decision based on our ego or our intuition. And so it is kind of like, okay, the devil is like, this is why you should listen to the fear. This is why we're scared. This is why you're going to fail. This is why we should just stay exactly where we are. Otherwise we'll die. Literally, it's so dramatic. And then the little angel is like, no, anything is possible. You're so strong. We can do this. Like, I wouldn't let you do this if I didn't think you could do it. Although intuition never ever explains. It just says, do this. But that's kind of how I like to think about it. Again, I'm very visual. So metaphorically, like, I think it helps our brains to think of these like sort of like little characters. At least it does for me. So superconscious and subconscious are offering their opinions on the matter, and the conscious mind decides, okay, you're going to take the lead. Okay, superconscious, you take the steering wheel, right? So here's the really crazy part. And this is a big part, I think, of the spiritual journey that we're all on. Studies show that only 5% of our daily decisions and actions are based on the conscious mind. The conscious mind, the decider. 95% of our daily decisions and actions are based on the subconscious, on our programming. It happens without us knowing or thinking about it. And then the superconscious isn't even included in this study at all. So, practicing presence, being in the present moment, high self-awareness is absolutely key here. We did a like emotional intelligence and like self-awareness quiz in Abundance Alchemy. And it was so interesting because I went through it and I felt really good about it. But I was like, wow, if I would have taken this quiz, you know, at the beginning of my spiritual journey, I would have been very displeased with the results. And I'm not perfect, you know, by any means, but I'm like, wow, like, I feel like, you know, I'm not always acting perfectly on this awareness, but the awareness is there, right? Like sometimes I'll still get like riled up and like upset about something, but then when that emotion starts to dissipate, I go, okay, well that was this. I know exactly where that came from, right? So it's really interesting. So we want to be very aware, very aware of the subconscious programming that is running the show, because it's running 95% of our daily life. And so if you feel like you have a really negative attitude towards dating or relationships, subconscious reprogramming is going to be the first step you want to get in there if you want to help your intuition take the lead in that part of your life, because the subconscious really has such an impact and is really bossy and really controlling. And again, it's not bad. It's actually really great when we reprogram it with what we want it to be, which is that, oh, there's so much love available to me. Oh, I'm so loving. I'm so worthy. I can trust, right? I can follow my intuition. So the dream formation, the goal is that we're led by our superconscious, and then the conscious, and then the subconscious backs that up. But where we get really stuck, and if you feel like, and sometimes this can feel like our whole life, sometimes it's like one part of our life is a sticking point and it feels like the other parts aren't too big of a concern. But so many of us get stuck living in reverse, where the subconscious is leading the show and the superconscious is basically forgotten or ignored. And the thing about the superconscious, which is, when I say that, I'm talking about your intuition, is that if you ignore it enough, it's just going to be like, fuck this. Why am I hanging around here? And it's going to just shut up. It's going to be like, they don't listen. So even the conscious can get mostly forgotten or ignored. And this leads to unhappiness, because the subconscious, again, this is so important. Its only concern is survival. And its rationality concludes that, well, we are alive now, so we'll just keep doing what we are doing. Anything else is a threat. Anything else is a threat. This is what I wrote down. Okay, you know I think it's from, oh no, it's Fred Armisen. He guests in literally everything. It's I think when he was on Parks and Rec, and there's those clips that go around of him like, straight to jail. Believe it or not, jail. Okay, this is what I'm referencing. But actually, your subconscious actually is saying you're gonna die. Writing your book, jail. Starting your business, jail. Sharing your art, straight to jail. Leaving your relationship or entering a new relationship, believe it or not, jail. This is our subconscious. It's like, no, absolutely not. Subconscious does not give a flying fuck about purpose, fulfillment, your true calling, your heart's desires, your inspiration, your creativity, your art, love, all of these things. Like, this is the superconscious. The superconscious cares about these things. Your intuition cares about purpose, fulfillment, your true calling. Your intuition leads you there. And so this is why it is so important for us to practice really, really, potent self-reflection. Shadow work is traveling into the subconscious to understand the parts of ourselves that are not serving us, to identify and begin the reprogramming process of those stories, those programs that are disempowering us. This is what we do every month in the Coven, where we meet for every new and full moon. Full moons are shadow work time. The full moon is bright. It illuminates what we need to release. That's why I love working with the moon, because we don't want to be doing shadow work all of the time. But shadow work is traveling into the subconscious to figure out what is going on here, that I'm not satisfied with this thing in my life. This pattern keeps returning. If you have a pattern that keeps returning and returning and returning, like you keep dating cheaters, or you keep having like toxic bosses, no matter what job you get, this is programming. This is programming. And so, the way I always like to sort of word this is that these things, these patterns that disempower us, these programs, they're not our fault. They are in no way our fault. They were learned through experiences, sometimes traumatic experiences. They are not our fault. However, they are our responsibility, because nobody's coming to save us. Nobody's coming to heal us. Like, there are people to help us heal, like myself. But I can't, like, you have to decide. You have to decide to hire me, right? Or hire a therapist, or hire a psychic medium to do a reading for you, right? And so it's not, repeat after me, okay? And think of something that you feel like, oof, this is a program in my mind, or this is something I'm struggling with that I know I need to dig into. I want you to just put your hand on your heart and say, this is not my fault, but it is my responsibility. And just ask yourself, what is the next step? What is the next step in moving past this? What part of me do I need to heal? What part of me do I need to offer compassion to? And so this feels like a good point to start wrapping up this podcast. But I just want to clarify why developing your intuition is so amazing on a practical and soul level. Because one, it really does help lead the way on this healing journey, on the spiritual journey. I can't tell you how many times, like, there's been things I didn't understand about myself, that it's my intuition that leads me there. That says, try this, or hire this coach, or, book this reading, or just go on this walk, or do this journaling prompt. And then my subconscious says, okay, here you go. Here's the information you need. And then we can go through the healing process. So it really helps guide our healing journey, but it also helps us just navigate complex situations and problem solve. Sometimes there's not a right answer. Sometimes there's not a simple answer, but intuition is going to help us, just honor. Intuition is always like leading us towards our highest good. And the thing about intuition is that, like, it is very, like, you want to think about it being like rainbows and butterflies. Intuition is not at all that. I think it's leather pants and, I don't know, spiky shoes like I used to own back in college. Intuition is a tough love bitch. Intuition is gonna say, this is the way, and it's not gonna explain itself. It's not the rationalizing, the conversating, the convincing voice. That's the subconscious trying to say, no, we're not doing something different. This is what the programming says. I'm relaying the information back to you. So intuition, it's tapped into the universal consciousness. It's not going to explain what it sees there, but it is leading you towards what's best for you. And like, yeah, sometimes we still fuck up the execution of that. I've listened to my intuition, but not done so very elegantly, I'll say, and like still like hurt a friend, right? Or not handled situations perfectly, but at the end of the day, I did listen to my intuition. I'm human, so I'm not always going to do so perfectly. Sometimes people still get hurt in the process. Sometimes we hurt in the process. When your intuition tells you to leave a relationship and there's still a lot of love in that relationship, that's hard, right? But when your intuition says this friendship isn't serving you, that's hard. When your intuition says it's time to quit this job, it's time to go back to school, it's time to make, sacrifice in the short run so you can have your dream in the long run, that's fucking hard. But it's always for our highest good. It's leading us to our full potential. It's leading us towards like our destiny, our purpose in this lifetime. And you don't have to understand what your purpose is. You just need to, I always say, like, intuition is going to drop the breadcrumbs little by little towards, and we'll get more clarity as we move on. But if it were to show us the big picture up front, we'd be so scared we'd run the other way. And so intuition, it's also vital in the creative process. I mean, there are so many stories of like inventors, scientists, like, you know, getting stuck at a certain point in their research and their invention, whatever, and then like they have a dream and it all comes together. Artists, right? Creativity goes beyond art. I always say that. Like creativity is like, I literally have like feathers in my tummy and my heart beats faster. I love creativity. I love being creative. And creative, like creativity dates, like artist dates, actually are a great way to connect to your intuition. We do channeled art sessions in the Alchemy Collective sometimes. It's so fun. I do them all the time. I try to paint at least like 3 times a week. And it's just such a beautiful, powerful path to self-discovery and accessing your inner wisdom and your true heart's desires and passions. That's all intuition. It spans out, it touches every area of our life, and it makes us braver and stronger. And we go through these beautiful healing journeys. It's going to ask a lot of us. It's going to ask us to be scared. It's going to ask us to, well, be brave, to move even when we're scared. It's going to ask us to get out of our comfort zone, but it's like all for us. It helps us be more us. And so I should have mentioned this earlier, I guess, but I want to invite you because I am hosting a free class. If you listen to this, you know, in the first few days that it comes out, you can come live. It's on Monday, June 3rd. And even if you missed it, check the link in the bio to see if you can get the replay. I'll have that up for a little bit of time. Or if you listen to this much later, send me a DM if you're like, but here's a few things that you can take this with you for your own intuition development. You can come do it with me. The free class, what we're going to do. So, well, let me start with this. There's 3 ways that I approach intuition development. So there's the being able to trust your intuition in everyday life, because that's the big thing, right? Like, well, it's cool to feel like I have like a psychic moment when I like try, right? Or it's cool to use divination, but like, how is this serving me in my everyday life? So that's one point that I think is really important when I teach intuitive development, being able to trust your intuition in everyday life, practical, tangible, using divination tools in an empowering and effective way. So that would be like tarot cards, oracle cards, pendulum, runes, however you like to practice divination. It's really important, I think, to go through how to use these in an empowering way, so we don't get trapped in a cycle of like depending on our tarot cards to like lead our lives when that's not really how it's meant to be, or like we constantly have to pull cards all the time because we don't trust ourselves. There's a way to, I mean, you can still pull cards every day, and I'm not saying that that's bad, but there's a way to do it that's empowering versus disempowering, and you feel a sort of like a desperation to be like validated by the cards, versus it being like a way to like prompt you to open up to your own intuition, using it as a journal prompt, using it to begin your self-reflection. But at the end of the day, it's about what is in your inner wisdom. Talk about that forever, but I need to shorten things up here. And then building your confidence to initiate contact with your spirit team and ask for guidance. And this is so cool to do. The first time I met my spirit team, I was like, that felt like make-believe. That didn't feel real. But whoa, that was actually really cool. And since then, they're like my besties. And let me know if you want me to do a podcast about spirit guides. But it's basically going to be a podcast on the live session. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you about the spirit world. I'm going to teach you about spirit guides. We're just going to do a quick like introduction to it so that you can feel grounded in what we're about to do. And then you're going to learn about the spirit world, and then we're going to journey into the spirit world. I'm going to take you on a journey to meet your spirit guides. It's going to be so fun. I have hosted these sessions so many times before. It's always so cool what people experience. And so go check the link in bio, either get the replay or come live if you can. It's so fun to be in your energy. But yeah, It's going to be so fun. And then for anyone that wants to continue on your intuitive development journey, in June, I'm going to be hosting Psychic Bitch Boot Camp. And we're going to spend the month of June just really opening up to this intuition. I have a huge library of past classes that you're going to have access to, and then we're going to meet for 4 live sessions. So 5 in total, including the free one, but 4 live sessions where we're just going to do like quick and dirty, like quick and easy, like open up, blast open these intuitive channels so that you can start having fun with this, powwowing with your guides, meeting, masterminding with your guides, and also beginning to let this ripple out and really affect your everyday life. Like I said, I just had one of my private clients say, like, we're not even doing specifically intuition development, but just the work we do together, like the clearing, the healing, the clarity, like it's just naturally blasted open her intuition. So imagine if that's the intention. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. So come to the free Meet Your Spirit Guides class. Think about Psychic Bitch Boot Camp. I'll be launching that next week, but it would be really fun to spend a month together being psychic as fuck. And make sure, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, do me a favor, drop a review. If you're on YouTube, say hi in the comments. It would mean the world to me if you share this episode or a favorite episode of yours so far with a friend to help me spread the impact of this podcast. And I know we took a little bit of a break there, and you know what? Doing this solo, there's probably going to be more of those. But I love creating this content for you. I'm so grateful I get to do this. Hopefully see you all at the Meet Your Spirit Guide session. And I love to hear from you. It's a huge value exchange for me. So if you want to come pop in my DMs on Instagram at I am Sadie Olson and just tell me your biggest takeaway from this week's episode. Mwah, chef's kiss. I love hearing from you. I love chatting with you. That would mean the world to me. So thank you. Make sure you are subscribed, share with a friend, and I will see you next week. Bye.